Hi, welcome everybody. My name is Lisa Jordan. I'm the managing director of the IEA, and I'm also the executive director of the Executives Association of Charlotte in Charlotte, North Carolina. And excited to have you all join us today. This is a monthly webinar series we offer for free for IEA members. These webinars are free for you to attend, but they're also free for you to host. So if you have a great topic that would be of interest to business leaders across the US and Canada, certainly reach out to me. I'll put my contact information in the chat. Would love to talk to you about hosting a future webinar. We do have dates still available in 2026. And if not you, maybe one of your coworkers, employees, colleagues in one of your executives associations you think would be a good fit, certainly pass that along as well. Before I introduce my new friend Haley, I would just wanted to do a quick plug for the IEA conference. We have a location and dates, and hopefully you've seen the save the date that went out recently. But we are excited to be in Akron, Ohio, September 30th through October 2nd of this year. If you haven't been to an IEA conference yet, I strongly encourage you to take a look at your calendar and see if you can make it work. It's a really great way to kind of extend your network beyond the four walls of your executive association and network with like-minded business owners across the US and Canada that are part of other executives associations. It's a great time to work on your business and also learn and hear from great topics and speakers as well. So be on the lookout for more information and registration opening up soon on that. All right, thanks for my shameless plug there. Now I'm going to introduce Haley. We were just learning that Haley's originally from Las Vegas, but now is a member of the Seattle Executives Association. Haley hosts two podcasts called Employee to Boss, focusing on entrepreneurship and business growth, and the Podcast Cafe, a show that aims to elevate the craft of podcasting for both beginners and seasoned creators. Beyond her professional life, Haley is a Seattle local who enjoys visiting coffee shops and spending time with her rescue dog named Captain. So I'm going to hand it over to Haley. And the other thing I was going to tell you is this will be recorded. So if you'd like to share this with someone that you work with or a friend, family member, whatever the case may be, it's available on the IEA YouTube page later in the week. So hope you will check that out and like and subscribe as well. All right, Haley, take it away.
Hello, well, thank you for having me. Like you said, I'm part of the Seattle chapter. Absolutely love Seattle execs. Been a member for almost a year now, which is so incredible. I've made so many connections, and I'm the biggest fan of podcasting. So I am really excited to talk to you today about the podcast effect. Like I mentioned, if you have any questions, please pop them in the chat. If you have a podcast, let me know. And feel free to interact with me during this. I love being able to tailor this to you and your business. So the more you share, the more tailored it will be. So with that, let's get started. This is a masterclass for businesses and business owners of really any size who want to grow their authority, want their audience to see and trust you more. It's big in 2026. You want to share your ideas with more people. You want to have more leads coming through your business. I mean, who doesn't want that? And you're sick of feeling like you never have enough content. That was me before I started my podcast, let me tell you. So, my name is Haley Hayhurst. I help entrepreneurs and business owners increase visibility through profits through podcasting. I have been doing this for over 5 years now. I started in 2020. I went to college in Las Vegas at UNLV for journalism. I started a podcast with a friend, and long story short, I ended up helping other people with their podcast for the past 5.5 years. So I've helped over 300 podcasters build the bridge to scale their podcasts organically. Everything I'm sharing today is organic strategies for podcast growth, and also with a focus on video podcasters. All of my podcasts that I host are video podcasts, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And the majority of my clients have video podcasts. Some of them still have audio only, and I'm trying to get them over that hump to start a video podcast, but I'll share the importance of why that is soon. So, yes, that's a little bit about me. So I hear this a lot where business owners are really struggling to get to the next level because they don't have time to post more. I mean, as business owners, we work so much, right? And as a marketing team, we have so much to do. And a podcast really simplifies a lot of these things because of the content you get from the podcast. So it's not just a podcast to have a podcast. We're using this as a strategic tool to grow your business. So many business owners are posting consistently and still not being seen right by the right people. They're working harder than ever to fight the algorithms if you have a business that you're growing on social media. And you're still not getting consistent leads, even though you know your offers are working. You've been in business for a long time now, and the things you've been doing aren't necessarily working the same as they were, say, 5, 10 years ago. You're feeling frustrated. You want something new. And I'm here to tell you a podcast can change all of this. So, a little bit about today's agenda. I'm going to walk you through why podcasting is key in 2026, how podcasting becomes your scale and authority engine, the 4 types of episodes that you need to convert listeners to clients, how you can turn one episode into a visibility ecosystem, and how I can help you implement this without burning out. So, the market is shifting, I'm sure you've all seen, and podcasting matters even more than ever before. Here's a few stats that I wanted to share with you just to get started as to why podcasting is so important. So, the main one here is as of January 2026, there's 4.5 million podcasts available worldwide. It's a lot of podcasts. But look here, only 500 or around 584.1 million people across the globe are listening. That's a lot of people, more people than there are podcasts. And there's another stat I have to share that most podcasts drop off after episode 10. So even though there are over 4 million podcasts available, right? Most of them are not active, but there's a large listenership. And this is what I want you to tap into. There's a podcast for everything, right? There's a podcast for every single one of your niche. And there's a way to stand out through podcasting when you podcast strategically. And the reason I want you to think about showing up on video is because 1 in 3 people in the US listen to podcasts on YouTube, which is a growing podcast platform that I want you to take advantage of. There's a lot of other cool stats here, but let's keep going. Growing a business in 2026 looks different. I started my business in 2020 and it's been a big change, even though it's only been 6 years, right? I when I first started, there were no such thing as video podcasts. Now, everyone needs a video podcast, and video podcasts are looking differently. This is my podcast background, which is pretty simple, but something like Diary of a CEO, if you've ever seen that, have huge productions. So, in a noisy world where businesses are betting on these businesses are betting on podcasts because business owners are turning their podcasts into content ecosystems. Podcast listeners are highly engaged. You have their attention for, let's say, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and their buyer behaviors are changing. I talk to people all the time that I ask them, like, oh, what is your podcast doing for you? And actually, this person I had on my podcast this week, she got a book deal from her podcast, and that person listened to 35 episodes before they even reached out to her. So, as a business, we have to continue putting out podcast episodes to build that trust with our audience. People are not buying from social media posts as easily as before. They're buying from people that they actually see. My clients know this. Across hundreds of podcast episodes, they have seen higher quality leads, shorter sales cycles, more inbound inquiries, stronger positioning, and better conversions. This is Kim Frost from the Seattle Execs chapter. If you know her, she's amazing. Go listen to her podcast, Higher Power. I helped her launch it. I actually met her at the very first execs meeting I ever went to, and she was one of the reasons that I decided to join execs. So, the podcast effect. A strategic podcast becomes more than just a podcast. It becomes your sales assistant, it becomes your marketing assistant, and your authority platform. So, breaking this down a little bit more, when you think of a sales assistant, you're thinking of before you even get on a call, that person already knows you. a little bit, right? They've maybe consumed some social media content. They've listened to some podcast episodes of you. They know you more than they would if you weren't showing up online. And when you do podcasting strategically, your audience is ready to buy from you by the time that you get on a call. This happens to me all the time. I've never met someone and they're like, "Oh, I've listened to so many of your episodes." And I'm like, "Amazing. I love it." Your marketing assistant. With the content that we'll be repurposing with your podcast, it will help you be seen even more. So I'll get into this in a little bit, but I'm a big fan of pulling video clips from your podcast. So then you could be posted on YouTube Shorts, LinkedIn Reels, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, wherever your audience is. And your authority platform, because no longer will you be invisible online. People will come and listen to you because you talk about your expertise. Isn't it cool when you can say, "Oh, I'm the host of blah, blah, blah podcast," and someone can go and listen and trust you even before they get too deep into like the next steps with you? I think it makes business a lot easier. Now, when I said a content ecosystem, this is what I mean. One episode does not mean one piece of content. One video episode can become social media clips, email content, sales assets, website resources, and authority proof. So when I say this, every episode, I cut at least two social media clips that I post across three different platforms. So this podcast episode is now turning into six additional pieces of content across those platforms that I use for people to see me. Then they can go listen to the full episode if they so wish. The next is the email content. I turn my solo podcast episodes into my email newsletter. I went to school for journalism, but writing is not my favorite way to get my point across. It's speaking. So I can repurpose what I've already done into an email newsletter. The same with you. You could do this too. Your sales assets. Whenever someone is on the fence with me if they want to start a podcast or not, truly, I have a sales call with them. If they don't convert immediately, I send them relevant podcast episodes saying, "I want you to make the right decision for you, but here's some things that I think will help you decide." So it becomes a sales asset. Website resources. I interview my clients and turn those into testimonials on my website. If you look on my website, Espresso Podcast Production /testimonials, all of those videos come from my podcast. Great way to repurpose. And authority proof, same thing. The testimonials that you can create. You can also create blog posts too. So many things that you can do with one podcast episode. So if you're doing this a weekly show, imagine how much extra content that is for people to be able to see you, know you, like you, and trust you. As promised, I wanted to talk to you about the four types of episodes that you need if you're going to use this podcast strategically. So the first one, and this can be across any platform or across any industry. If you want to pop in the chat which industry you're in, I'll try to keep an eye out for that to see, and we can kind of customize this to you. But authority episodes, the purpose is to show your expertise. So, for instance, how I helped my client get 80,000 downloads on her podcast in 1 year. That's something I did. I'm going to tell that story because that's a case study, right? That's going to show my authority that, okay, she actually knows what she's doing. For some of my other clients, I work with quite a few people in the wellness space. They can say how I help my client change their fitness workouts from this to this, right? It's authority, it's your case study. The next one is trust building, building connections. So lessons I learned from 6 years as a podcast producer, behind the scenes as a nutritionist, behind the scenes as an author. These are the trust building episodes. Um, okay, Jane, business development for marketing agencies. I love that. I think a podcast would be really good for you just because, as a marketing agency, it's a lot of things that you have to talk to your clients about. And whether you do a full scope of marketing, social media, podcasting, like all of it, or not. I mean, that's something that you can definitely explain through your authority episodes and your trust building episodes. Like behind the scenes of me building my agency, behind the scenes of, whatever it might be. Jackie, Garden Center Landscaping Company. This is interesting. I think it depends on who you are working with. Is it like businesses? Is it residential? I still think a podcast could be great for you. Visual Technologies, David. We are an event staging company producing live events for award dinners. Oh, that's so fun. That's really cool. I want to hear more about that. Um, Bill, sales and marketing for outsourced payroll, human resources, benefits, and safety. Okay, all of you guys probably have things that you want to, get across to your ideal clients, right? You want them to trust you more, learn more about the ways that you do business. And you could do that all throughout your episodes. And here I'm talking about solo episodes, but there's a whole different thing that we could talk about, which is guest episodes, which I'll talk to you about in a second. I want to get through the four types. So that's the trust episodes. The next is objection crushing episodes. Remember when I said I get people all the time saying, "Oh, I just don't know if a podcast is right for me or if it's not." This is where I can send them a podcast episode that's like, "Do you really need a podcast producer? Do you really need a podcast editor?" Right? You could do this. Do you really need a landscaper? Do you really need marketing? Depending on the different types of businesses, just call it out. This is what's doing the sales for you. And then next is the offer aligned episodes. So, like I said, all of my clients I interview and I turn those into case studies, testimonials, and we'll also break down my processes because I think, there's a lot of people that can tell you to start a podcast, but without the strategy behind it, you're really just going to put content out there and not see the results that you want. So I share a lot of those in my podcast episodes, like my actual process. Does anyone have any questions about these? I'm going to get a sip of water. Okay, let's move on. Well, before we do that, I want to talk about like the guesting. I have a mixture of guest episodes and solo episodes on my podcast because with the solo or the guest episodes, I have this opportunity to get in front of other people's audiences while they get in front of my audience. So it's like, a best of both worlds situation. The reason I say solo episodes are so important is because this is all about you and your business, whereas a guest episode is kind of, half and half. Like, yes, it's about you and your business, but it's also about them and their business. The reason you want guest episodes for most businesses and most podcasts is that audience sharing. There's really no other platform that you can have such cool audience sharing than a podcast. So I always say, have guests on your show, at least one a month, and see what that does for you. Strategically, though, of course. Okay, funnels. This is the piece that so many podcasts are missing. People put out podcast episodes and they're like, all right, cool. Let's see what it does for my business. Well, without a funnel, it's probably not going to do much if I'm being honest. There's two different types of funnels that I talk to my clients about, whether their podcast is top of funnel or middle of funnel. I'll give you an example of both. Top of funnel is, let's say you are a money coach and you want to share money, financial advice. You want to share all of these important things and you have good keywords in your podcast. An example of this is I had a client, her podcast is Wealthy After 40. It's a big keyword, SEO, where people are searching that. So most of her audience were coming top of funnel. They had never seen her before. The podcast is the first time that they're learning anything about her. So this is the awareness phase. After they're aware of your podcast, they're going to be listening more and more. Your goal at this point is to take them away from the podcast and get them into the rest of your world. So whether this be connecting with you on LinkedIn, downloading a freebie, a lead magnet, this is big. You want a lead magnet in your podcast. Whether it is emailing you, no matter what it is, we want them to go from podcast listener to podcast to a client of yours, right? So the middle ground is your job to convert them from listener to into your world. The next way is, and this is what my podcast is. People honestly are not finding me from my podcast. They're finding me through social media. They're finding me through different webinars that I do, the networking. They're aware of me. They're discovering me somehow. And then they say, okay, interesting. I am going to go listen to a podcast. They get curious and then they become a podcast listener. This is where most of my clients go from like meeting me to listening to my podcast. And that's doing all the trust building for me before I even get on a call with them after our first initial meeting or the first time they see me on social media. Next, same thing. They want to get deeper. They want to, book me for a free call. They want to download a lead magnet that I have. Then they become a client. I think the reason I'm saying this is the conversion and the funnel is the most important part of podcasting. You can have 10 listeners and have conversion. You can get clients. You can have thousands of listeners and get no clients without a funnel. And if after this, any of you are deciding that you do want to start a podcast, focus on the funnel. Before you launch, please focus on building that funnel. It's different for every single person, but think of what lead magnet can you share or what incentive can you share to get someone from the podcast to client? What's that middle ground there? So I'm going to check the chat really fast. On your freebie, how much time do you allow for the call or Zoom? I do 30 minutes. I do 30 minutes. But I also, my main lead magnet is a free podcast launch checklist where they download it. And honestly, they could do it all from there. Most people want extra support while doing that, but they can see laid out exactly what it takes to start a podcast. So think about that. Like, what if someone's hiring you, what resource can you give them? Then they get pushed to my email funnel, my email sequence, which is like 8 emails every single day, where I'm telling them more about who I am and like the backstory and get on a call with me. So that's like the strategic overview of putting out a podcast and then offering something for free, educating them more, getting them to a client. So, yeah, David, I say 20 to 30 minutes is plenty. I think any longer than that, that's where it's like, you know, giving away too much, but 30 minutes I can do for sure. So, without the proper funnels in place, it doesn't matter how many viewers or listeners you have on your podcast. You want your podcast to live inside of your business. You don't want it to be some, side by side. I do strategy calls where I help a lot of people marry their podcast and their business because they start a podcast, it's not integrated with their business. They're doing two separate things with two different goals. And that's the last thing we want. So, I talked about lead magnets as the funnel in your podcast that then goes to an email sequence. Um, you can also get people onto your email list and sell them from there. It's a great way to approach it, especially for businesses. Email is like the highest converting sales tool, I think. You'll have to fact check me, but it is a great way to sell to people. Your podcast is also doing lead nurturing. So, like I said, if someone's on the fence, well, here's one of my episodes. You can just go and listen. I would think with some of the more complex businesses that you guys have, this is really where a podcast would help a ton. And then client onboarding. I'm going to answer David's question. Do you purchase any lists? I don't. I use my podcast launch checklist to get people onto my email list, and then I email them from there. I've never purchased a list. I don't think any of my clients necessarily have either. I've built it from, and I have like a smaller email list, but I still get inquiries from it too, just because they're very curated to the business that I have. But I'm happy to talk to you more about that too and what would make sense for your business as well. Um, Okay, and then the last thing for the funnel is client onboarding. So if you have an episode that explains your process in depth, this can serve as your onboarding and offer an aligned episode. Um, so for instance, I walk people through like step by step what's going to happen when we work together, what's going to be the next thing we do. I'll also turn that into a podcast episode. And so it works for my clients once they're onboarded, but it also works for someone who's wondering, okay, if I'm to start a podcast with Haley's team, what is next? Kind of takes away the fear of like, you know, getting people to the next step. So there's a lot that you can do here. This is not all of the things, but this is a good amount of what I help my clients with. I have a ton of never-ending ideas depending on the industry. So definitely, if you're curious, we can kind of tailor this to you after the call. Because this is what I want for you. I want you to pre-sell, pre-qualify, and pre-educate your audience. I want them to find you. I want them to listen to the episode. I want them to binge a few episodes, 5, 10, 15, 30, however many it takes them to finally trust, book, and buy. And that's before they even get on a call with you. That's what your podcast can do for you. It takes away a lot of that, well, what do you do? Or those questions of, do you think this is right for me? Or, tell me more about your business. Okay, I answer a ton of those questions anymore because people are listening to my shows and they already get it. So, especially with a business that has more um, depth to it, and you have a certain way that you're working with people, a certain take that you have, um, a podcast can really take away a lot of those questions and make it easier for you. So that's what I want for all of you. And I want you to remember, no funnels is no growth. Just flat out. Focus on the funnels, okay? You know, I also hear a lot of questions around, even when I joined execs and people were thinking about podcasting for the first time, people would say, well, most podcasts don't make money, do they? And I would say the way I monetize my podcast is not through sponsors, it's not through advertisements, it's through selling my own services because people are getting to know me even more, right? So if you're going into podcasting wanting to grow your business, but you're getting advertisements from HelloFresh, I'm sure we've all heard them on a podcast, or, any of these food prep things, it makes no sense. This is one of my biggest pet peeves in podcasting. You are a business, you have something to sell. This podcast is basically a big advertisement board for you. Sell your own services. Do not be afraid to you know, sell on it. That's what people are coming to you for. They're listening to your podcast because they want to learn something and they want to hear how you can help them. There is a mix of how much to sell. It can't just be like the whole time. Give them value and offer them a way to continue the conversation with you. That's the funnel. So I highly encourage people not to do podcasting alone. It's very nuanced, does not come easy to everyone. There's no rules with it, I will say. There's no rules with podcasting, so you could do whatever you want. And that's amazing, but it also gives a lot of opportunity to not hit the maximum that you can. So there's a difference between DIY podcasting, which is just starting a podcast because you see someone else in your industry do it, versus strategic podcasting. So, trying to do it alone looks like guessing what to post, recording random episodes, inconsistent publishing, no clear ROI, burnout, frustration. You're busy, but you're not growing, right? These are all things that I see a lot in the podcast space. And I'm sure if you guys have colleagues who have done podcasts, you may have heard this from some of them as well. But this is what strategic podcasting is not. I meet with all of my clients quarterly to talk about their business initiatives for the next quarter. What podcast episodes can we record and post to complement this? And then how are we going to repurpose it so it's not just one podcast episode, it's a whole ton of content. The hidden cost of figuring it out is months of trial and error, missed opportunities, lost leads, wasted content, slower income growth. For any of you who are in marketing or have business coaches or are a coach, you know that time is your most important asset, and having support with something like this is definitely the best way to approach it. With the right strategy and support, this is what I want for all of you is clear positioning. So when someone says, "What is your podcast about?" you know right away, and other people know when they're listening. It's kind of like when you watch a movie and you try to recap it to someone and you're like, I don't know, there's just like a lot to it. That's what we don't want with your podcast. We want it to be clear who it's for, what it's for, and what people get from it. Aligned content, built-in funnels, these are all things that with the right systems and strategy, your podcast can do for you. Strategy makes a difference. If there's two things you take away from this is podcasting is amazing in 2026. And I think almost every business should have one if they have the strategy and the funnels in place to get to the next level. So I offer 10% off all my services to IEA members. I wanted to share that all with you, whether you're in execs or whether you are in any IEA chapter. And for you all being here today, I really appreciate it. And I want to offer you a free one-on-one call. This is not for me to sell you on anything. This is just to continue the conversation. And I also love networking. Networking is one of my favorite things to do as a business owner. So I would love to get to know you more. So that is all about the podcast effect. Here at Espresso Podcast Production, I offer podcast launch services, audio and video podcast production, a podcast growth accelerator. I help people with their podcast seasons for someone who doesn't want to do, you know, a ton of podcast episodes. They just want to do a few curated ones. You can find out all the information on my website, espressopodcastproduction.org. And I wanted to leave time for Q&A, so what questions can I answer for you? I'm going to stop sharing and share the link with you to book a call with me.
That's perfect. Thanks, Haley. Thanks so much. That was really interesting to hear.
Good, I'm
Please go
glad.
ahead and unmute yourself and feel free to ask Haley a question since we have plenty of time here. I'm sure everyone would love to hear your questions.
I see David's question. How many followers do you have and how long have you been podcasting? I I mean on Instagram, if you're asking, I probably have like 3,000 followers or something. I don't have a huge following. Um, and I've been podcasting since 2017.
Oh, early.
Early.
Do you specialize in one field or another?
I don't, no. So all of my clients are business owners. So as long as they have something to sell and work with clients or other businesses, um, the reason for that is it keeps me very interested when I'm editing and working on the podcast. I love learning about all different industries. And I will say, I am not the expert in any of my clients' industries, right? I work with authors who talk about publishing. I work with bridal seamstress who talk about creating wedding dresses. I work with business coaches who have complex marketing strategies. And what I'm here to help support is strategic. I learn about their business. I say, this is where a podcast can fit in. And I help them fit it into their podcast. So the approach that I take to podcasting is unique to every single client, but it's not one specific industry. I don't work on lifestyle or comedy or whatever. Like all of my clients are professional businesses.
I was going to ask if you worked with any comedians or, entertainment industry. Yeah.
Some of my clients are funny, but not that's not the goal. And I will say, I always ask people, what will make you feel successful as a podcaster? Because success means different things to different people. Sometimes it's they want a talk show. Okay, I've had that before. That approach is going to be very different from someone who wants to get 20 leads per month for their business. Those approaches are going to be very different. And I can come in with a strategic overview and say, all right, if this is really what you want, this is how we can do it. Um, yeah, so that is that I don't work on anything specific.
It's great. Good question. Anyone else have a question for Haley? I see Haley posted the link there. If you would like to book a call with her, feel free to do that.
I'll also put my website in here too.
Jackie has a question. Do you help build the funnel?
I do. I do. Yes, that's a big part of what um, I help my clients with. I have people on my team who do like email copywriting. That's not my specialty, but I help build the funnel. Then I have people to support with the execution of it as well. And again, two funnels are never the same, right? Depending on what the overall goal for the show is.
Any other questions? Oh, Seattle Execs is working with Haley to create a podcast for our organization. Ooh, tell
Yes,
me
they
about that,
are.
Haley. Seattle Execs is going to have their own podcast?
Seattle Execs is going to have our own podcast. I am so excited to be supporting in this new marketing strategy, with the goal of it being to highlight the members and also to get new members into the Seattle Execs. It's going to be
Wow.
really good. And we're focusing it local, which will be very fun. So yeah, we're going to be interviewing the members and it will be very exciting. We're going to launch hopefully soon. We recorded the trailer episode. We're presenting it to the group and going from there. So
Will you send me a copy of it? Because, I work for the IEA, so I work with all 30 chapters
yeah,
across the US and Canada. So this is something that other chapters might want to replicate.
and I think they should. I think they should. I mean, there's not so many local Seattle podcasts, but there's so many local Seattle business owners who I want to get the word out about execs. I've only been in it for less than a year, and I'm like, I love it. So I want to help support in the growth of it. And podcasting is a great way to build community.
That is cool. Wow. I'm glad Barbara mentioned that. I'm eager to hear about that.
Totally.
Let's see. Jackie asked the general cost to launch a podcast and funnel, like cost in time and money.
Yeah. I can send you additional information if you want to put in your email. I can send you over like a service guide that I have. I would say for generally the launch for a video podcast is about 2,500, and that's everything is included in it. Everything from logo to the funnel to the planning of the podcast, helping you set up the recordings, everything, including the first three episodes, and then we kind of go from there. Let me copy your email and I'll
Yeah,
send it
that's
over.
Jane's email. Jackie, if you want to put your email in there, you can do that as well. Do people generally have to buy more equipment, cameras, microphones, that kind of thing?
Yeah, so I have a certain microphone that I recommend people starting with. It's usually about $100 and sorry, let me put this in here. It's about $100 and it's a great one to start with. And then as they love podcasting, we can upgrade from there. I just got this new microphone that I'm using today that it's a little bit pricier, but the quality is amazing.
Is
So
good, yeah.
yeah, I do recommend getting the right equipment to, this is how we're representing our businesses.
Sure.
For me, this is my main marketing tool.
Right. Right.
So
Like I told you, I had a broken microphone that I'm dealing with. So maybe I need to send me a link. Okay, Jackie put her email in the chat. Oh,
perfect.
Jackie, you did a webinar for us a while ago. I remember that Little York Plantation. It was on gardening. It was great. Okay, well, if there's not any additional questions, then we will wrap this up. And as I said, this will be posted on the IEA YouTube page later on in the week. And thank you, Haley, for your time and for joining us today. We appreciate you.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. And I've loved this and I can't wait to connect with more of you.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.